Once upon a time, there was a king who had two sons. And so the king allowed his kingdom to go to ruin and abandoned his two sons.
The Thing with Feathers is not a horror movie in the usual way. There are no jump scares, no monsters chasing people throughout dark alleyways, and no loud music to tell you that a jump scare is going to happen. Instead, this film is about something much quieter and much harder to escape.
This is Scare Me If You Can 95, and there will be minor or major spoilers ahead. Also, don't forget to subscribe and let me know what your favorite horror movie is.
The Thing with Feathers, it's about grief, and more importantly, it's about what happens when grief refuses to leave. The story follows a father and two young sons after the sudden death of their mother. From the start, the film feels heavy. Even when nothing scary is happening, the house is empty. Time feels slow, conversations feel unfinished. Everyone is trying to move forward, but no one really knows how. Soon after the loss, something strange appears in the house. A large crow-like figure begins to visit them. The creature is not explained right away, but it's harmless because it doesn't attack. It's not afraid because it doesn't hide. It just simply exists, watching, talking, and taking up space. At first, it feels confusing and uncomfortable, just like grief itself. What makes The Thing with Feathers so powerful is that the crow is not clearly good or evil. Sometimes it just feels cruel, other times it feels honest, and sometimes it feels protective. It says the things that no one wants to hear, but deep down, we all know it. In this way, the crow becomes a symbol for grief, the part of loss that stays with you, even when you wish for it to go away. The father in the film is trying to be strong for his children, but he is clearly breaking inside. He wants to fix things. He wants answers. He wants to go back to how life was before. But the grief, it doesn't work that way. The more he tries to ignore it, the louder, the bigger the crow becomes. The children experience the crow differently from them. It is frightening, but also familiar. Children experience grief in a different way from adults, so their understanding is different. They feel it without needing to explain it. The film shows how kids can accept sadness more easily, while the adults struggle to control it or hide it and not really feel it. One of the most important ideas in The Thing with Feathers is that grief is not something you can defeat. It is something you have to live with day by day. Get used to the level of grief that a loss of a loved one causes. The crow does not come to hurt the family. It comes to make sure they do not forget. Forgetting would be a deeper, different kind of loss. Unlike typical horror stories where the monster has to be defeated, this film slowly teaches us that the crow cannot be chased away. It will only leave when the family learns to face their pain instead of running from it. The crow, it grows and feeds on the silence, the denial, the fear, but it weakens when the people speak honestly about their sadness, about their grief. As the story moves forward, the father begins to understand that grief is not a sign of weakness. Crying does not mean failure. Remembering does not mean you are stuck in the past. The crow pushes him towards these realizations, even when it feels harsh or unfair. The film also shows that grief changes people differently. There is no correct way to mourn. Everybody deals with grief differently. Some days feel almost normal, and other days are unbearable. The crow appears during those unbearable moments, reminding the family that healing is not linear. It's okay to take 2 steps back, but as long as we keep progressing, the crow can leave. In the end, the crow doesn't disappear because everything is fixed. It leaves because it is no longer needed in the same way it was in the beginning. It leaves because it's no longer needed in this household. The family has learned how to carry their loss without letting it destroy them. Grief is still there, but it no longer controls every single moment. This is a quiet story, but a powerful one. It reminds us that loss never truly goes away. It changes its shape. It follows us, but if we face it honestly, it can stop feeling like a monster and start feeling like something we can live with. Understanding the crow better in this film, it helps to look at the ideas of Carl Jung. He believes that every person had a hidden darker side, and Jung called this the shadow. The shadow is made up of feelings that we don't like to talk about. Sadness, anger, fear, guilt, pain, and giving into your vices. Most people try to ignore this part of themselves, willing to only show the good sides instead of embracing the shadow. But Young believed that ignoring the shadow only makes it stronger. The crow represents the shadow. It is not just grief, and it is not just anger. It is all the painful feelings the father is trying to avoid after the loss of his wife. The crow follows him, talks to him, and forces him to face emotions that he would have rather pushed away. At times, the crow feels cruel and overwhelming, but it never actually tries to destroy him. Instead, it tries to hold up a mirror. It demands to be seen and understood. Jung believed that healing does not come from defeating the shadow, but from accepting it. You cannot erase the pain, but you can learn from it. The crow in this movie works in a similar way. When the father tries to ignore it, the crow gets bigger, louder, and more controlling. When he finally listens and accepts the crow and all that it represents, the crow begins to lose its power over him. This is why the father eventually becomes a writer. All that grief he writes in a book about his experiences, including the crow, and it becomes a way for him to understand his grief. Instead of it being trapped inside, he expresses it on the pages. Just like Jung believed, the father does not want to become better by forgetting his pain. He becomes better by turning that pain into meaning. The crow doesn't disappear because the father is no longer sad. It leaves because he learned how to live with the grief without letting it control his entire life. The dark part of him very much still exists, but it no longer rules him. He has embraced it, learned from it, and grown into a stronger version of himself. It shows us that moving forward does not mean leaving the grief behind. It means carrying it differently. When we accept our darker feelings instead of running from them, they can stop feeling like monsters and start becoming a part of who we are. If grief never leaves us, how do we learn to live with it instead of being afraid of it?
I'm Scare Me If You Can 95, and thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.